QLA is simple, but simple isn't the same as easy. Recently, I got a call from Shawn, who had completed his first transaction. It took a little more than a year. To say that he had obstacles along the way would be an understatement. He ended up originally purchasing the 7-step course I put together. He had several phone calls with me as he got started and wanted to overcome some of the obstacles that he had. And it's a great story, and I wanted to turn it into a podcast for you. There's a lot of lessons in this interview with Shawn, so enjoy and learn. How did you find QLA and Dan Pena?
So I was working as a collector for a kind of
quote unquote loan company.
a unique business plan. And I was doing a lot of driving from location to location. I was listening to YouTube, and I was listening to motivational and business stuff. I was feeling kind of sorry for myself because I was such a failure in business. And I think Dan Pena came up in my recommendation feed. And I think the first video was why, can I swear in this?
I guess you can.
Okay. Why you are a fucking poor, or why you are a cunt, or something like that. And being from a military background, I like that language. And so I clicked on it. And I was just, I was hooked. I then looked, I tried finding other stuff of him. I think I found, at the same time, Joe Rogan came out.
Yeah.
So
this was about a year ago, something like that? Maybe a little longer? Yeah.
Maybe I think over a year ago. And I immediately tried to go to the seminar. That's the first thing. I mean, after I heard him for 5 minutes, I said, after I learned that he had a seminar,
right?
I said, I got to go see this guy. And I have never tried all the other guys. I never tried Tony Robertson, I think his name is.
Tony Robbins, yeah.
Yeah, I never try all of those folks. I never believed in a quick, get rich quick kind of bullshit. Mm-hmm. So I tried going there. I found out that it's 20 grand. And as I mentioned, I couldn't afford that.
Yeah.
I actually tried to convince him to be my mentor for free.
Yeah.
And
how'd that work out?
It didn't work out. And anybody listening, don't try it.
Yeah.
So that's how I came to learn about Dan Pena.
And then you found a Bruce Whipple character along the way.
Yeah. So then I started listening more and more to Dan. I mean, I stopped listening to anybody I have listened to before, and I just started listening to Dan. And then you started coming up more and more. I said, gosh, this guy, Bruce, he's been doing this for 25 years, $2 billion. I mean, let me just look this guy up. So I looked you up very early, actually. I think that was before you had the website. I don't know how long you have this website, but I didn't find you right away. And then I looked you up again. And then that's when I found you. And I found the 7 steps. I did that for the, I think the first thing I got of you was the $99 thing.
Might have been $9.95.
Yeah, I mean it was ridiculous. I mean,
I still see that pop up sooner or later. I'm gonna maybe take that down, but yeah,
you should. It's extremely. I mean, let me tell you, you are worth much more. Not that you need to know it, but you are much more than $9. Let me tell you that.
Good, even $9.95. Okay, so so you went through, one of the things that struck me was you learned to follow the steps. Most people get in trouble and say, I don't need a dream team, I don't need lawyers and accountants, I just want to do a deal. And so you picked an industry, construction industry, a segment of the construction industry. You did background on that, and then talk about how you went after assembling a dream team and why
Yeah.
that's so important.
So actually, I did deviate. I did try healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
and then I didn't like it, and then I went to construction.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what actually happened. And building a dream team is the single most important thing, unless if someone's watching this and you already have done 300 deals in your life, maybe you don't need a dream team. But someone like me that didn't have, you know, you can say I had businesses, but my professional experience was basically nothing.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Nobody knew me. I had no track record other than failure. So putting together a dream team, especially if you can find a dream team like I put in, it was so important, so crucial. I mean, I could never get the law firms and even the acquisition that we'll get into later that I've made. I could never do this deal
yeah,
without the people
yeah.
on my board.
And a lot of
And
times it's easier than people think, uh, certainly. And well, let's go
yeah,
through that. So a dream team was incredibly important, you thought.
yeah. Like I said, you can't do QLA without a dream team.
Yeah,
It's just impossible. Especially when you have no track record and no background
yeah.
at all. So I actually followed Dan's advice and your advice when it comes to finding a dream team is you want to start with an anchor chairman,
Yeah.
which is somebody preferably in your industry, but someone that has a track record of doing acquisitions and has an impressive resume.
Right.
Um, so I made a list of 10 in my industry. The first person I called was the least attractive for me.
Yeah. So
And
you were practicing.
yeah, and the 10th person was, Steve Jobs of my industry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just went through the steps. I had people, laugh at me. Some people say, a guy told me, "Oh, you have to have a business plan. You don't have a business plan." I said, "You're a doofus." Didn't pursue that guy, and I just talked to people. And actually, I had a few people that were interested in joining the
Mm-hmm.
board. Um,
And
what I
did
found,
you find these people through LinkedIn or through Google or
so
combination?
actually, I did LinkedIn and like Google, trying to
Yeah.
find the most reputable people in my industry, or if you have a very like healthcare, you want to put people in your most reputable in your area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I reached out to some, I reached out to heavy hitters,
Yeah.
like people that are extremely successful. And I actually got, as a chairman, an individual that is basically the godfather of the industry. He wrote books, he built multiple companies. His first company was sold for 40 million. His second company was a franchise, which was sold to a national company for undisclosed amount. And then his third company was sold for I think either 600 or 750 million dollars in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking a few billion if you were adjusting it. Um, had 1,200 locations, 100,000 employees. I mean, he was a very very successful individual, and now he is in his 70s, coming close 80s, and he's retired. And I just
Still have life in him.
um, and I just gave him a call. I mean, after I have recordings on my phone of me practicing
Yeah.
talking, and that's the one of the most important thing I learned from QLA. Not only for business, I do it now for anything in life. Is I practice. I practiced before I came to this to speak with you today. I practice. I say,
Yeah.
okay, what question he's going to ask? And a lot of people, when they hear practice, they think this whole grandiose thing. No, it's just, for simple stuff, you just need to sit 10 minutes, an hour, maybe a night before, just kind of walk through what you're about to do. If you're going to meet with a banker, or you're going to meet with someone important like a anchor chairman, or any chairman at all, or a business target, you should really practice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because it's really life or death. If I didn't practice, I would never get the people on my board. And that is something that I really learned from Pure. So I reached out. I just called the guy up. I Googled his phone number. I found his LinkedIn. I called out all these other people. I knew what I want to do. I knew what I want to say. I knew what questions people will ask me already. I had all the answers. And the funny thing about preparing, I prepared for this whole conversation, this whole drama. And when I actually called him, I said my elevator pitch. He said, okay, that sounds good. You want to come down and meet with me for dinner?
Yeah.
And that's it. And we met for dinner. We spoke for about 5 hours. We really got along, which is important. Um, and and he just said, yeah, I will do it. And I that was the same time I bought your $500 uh, uh, program, almost exactly a year ago.
Yeah.
A little over than a year.
Yeah. And we'll get to it, but within that year, now you've closed your first transaction. And one of the things that's interesting when we talk about that is it's fair to say your credit was less than stellar. That's a fair statement. But I think one of the things that's important is that a lot of entrepreneurs that go through the processes you went through of doing a business, failing, their credit suffers. But the thing you did not do was file bankruptcy. And when you look at that, and that's not unusual that people end up having the troubles along the way. But when a banker looks at that, maybe they didn't get paid in the time frame that they wanted to get paid in, but you didn't walk away from your obligations. That speaks to your integrity, and ultimately that is important to people lending you money. So that's a big part of your success, I think, is that you didn't wipe the slate clean like a lot of people do. So you then put together the rest of your board. How did you find going to the professionals, the accountants and the lawyers, and getting them to work on success-oriented, deferred, rolled fees?
Yeah, so that was an interesting process. By the way, when I started QLA, I had a 1-year-old daughter, a pregnant woman, wife at home, and I was working a full-time job, and I am working a full-time job.
Just so people are clear, that's not two separate people. You didn't have a pregnant woman and a wife at home. They're one and the same.
Unfortunately, no. I just had one wife.
Yeah. Okay.
But I was working a full-time job, and I am still working a full-time job.
Yeah.
Even after my transaction, which is very, if you can't, don't pay yourself all the profit from the transaction because you want that profit to finance other deals. So probably the next transaction I will stop working. But anyways, back to putting together the dream team, the professionals. So at first I reached out. This is where I did a mistake, by the way, which I paid for. I first reached out to big four accounting firm in my area instead of
practicing.
Talking to smaller firm. Exactly. I didn't learn my lesson.
Right.
Back then I didn't learn my lesson. And I went to, it was brutal. I went to KPMG. They put me in, I think it was the janitor office to talk about the deal. They asked for my personal address to run a conflict check. When I gave them my personal address, they saw where I live, which was not a castle and was not anything close to that. It was a crappy apartment,
Yeah.
to be specific. Uh, and so they never called me back. That kind of hurt.
Yeah.
Um, I Deloitte. I mean, they again, janitor's office. Three guys kind of laughing at me, because my answers were horrible. But anyways, I did that. I met with anybody I can. Everybody said no, and then I spoke with you, and I said, "Hey, Bruce, what's going on? I can't get accounting firm." You said, "Well, try to do law firms. I find that those are easier for me." And so I did that. I reached out to Dantos. I reached out to Greenberg Turning, I think the name is, Winston Strawn, all the big firms. And a lot of them were interested. A lot of them were interested. Now, I found that it's easier to go meet with them and then not mention anything about deferred fees the first meeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when they follow up with you and they say, "Hey, what's going on?" Then you say, "Well, I have this other firm that is really aggressive on the terms. I'm not sure if you want to match them, but I do like your firm. So let me send you some examples or whatever." Or you can just tell them on the phone. Um, what I did is I told them I have I got one law firm, not a very large one, a very low level one, to send me an engagement letter with deferred fees on it. Then I took that, I redacted it, and then to remove the firm's name and everything, and then I sent it to the firms that I actually want. And I said, "Look, I have this other large firm that is giving me this terms. I don't know if you want to match it." So then everybody gave me amazing terms.
Yeah. Yeah. And that process also generates a lot of confidence that you've already got someone to say yes. Um, and, it's interesting because I've had several people that said, well, they were told from a law firm or accounting firm, well, no law firm or accounting firm worth their salt would ever agree to this. And at that point, it's not bad to say something like, well, it's interesting you say that because we do have a large firm that's accepted this. Would we like to do business with you? Yeah. But we also understand that not all law firms have the same entrepreneurial spirit or risk profile, which is a nice slap in the face. At which point they usually say, whoa, 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 we didn't say that we're not able to work with you. So, having that in your pocket, just like you practiced, is really important. And the reason you don't go for the big guys first, which you taught yourself as well. Okay. So you eventually got the professionals on a success-oriented deferred fee, rolled fee. The accountants will have a problem with success, but they shouldn't have a problem with deferred or rolled fees. And that's important. We all hope that the first deal is going to go well. You've got a dream team that goes through the due diligence at a high level so that your best chance of making it successful is there. But stuff happens, right? So so you found then a motivated seller, and you didn't have a lot of cash. And if I remember correctly, basically you had the owner take back 100% of the deal, but additionally leave the cash in the deal, which then let you pay for professionals, et cetera, and maybe, just maybe, take a bonus for yourself. I don't know if you did that or not.
I did that.
You did that, okay. So how was that negotiation with the owner?
It was brutal, and it took a long time, but you got to understand that this is a guy most likely that has been working in his business or built his business from scratch and is doing it for 10 years or 20, 30 years. And now you come, some Joe Schmo off the street, with a hotshot team, and now you want to get his business for free, basically.
Mhm.
So you got to be very strategic with what you push back on, what you don't push back on. Um, by the way, regarding the accounting firms, after I got the law firms, 5 minutes after my first meeting with my partner, I had an accounting firm because I asked him, can you introduce me and recommend? And actually, I met with an accounting firm, the accounting firm that we hired, they denied me. And then when my partner reached out, they accepted the terms and we got them no questions
Yeah.
asked. I mean,
Yeah.
it was instant. He told
Wow.
them on the phone, yeah, of course, no problem. I'll send them an engagement letter to
Yeah.
review.
Well, that's
So,
one of the values also of dealing with large firms. They can introduce you, they can make
yeah,
introductions to financial institutions, even potential deals once they're
yeah,
comfortable with you. Okay.
yeah. It's important to use your team. And I learned that more and more is how it's important to use your lawyers, your accountants, and your dream team. They're not just names on a paper.
Yeah.
They're actual people, and they 99% of the time they know more than you and they know better than you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I use them a lot.
Well, you should. And it's one thing for you to walk in or someone that's beginning a business. It's another thing to walk in with a team behind you that someone looks at and says, "Ooh, I don't know about him, but if he's assembled a team like this, we better listen. We better listen."
Yeah, and a
Yeah.
lot of people told me that. And actually, um, like I said, I could never get this deal done without my board. So I reached out to a few businesses, and I was kind of just winging everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I approached this business and I said, this business was actually on the market.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I gave them an offer. And I gave them the offer while I was in the hospital. My wife, we were finding out the gender of the baby.
Mm-hmm.
So I was on the phone, is it a boy? Is it a girl? Listen, these are the terms. So that was funny. But I found this business. I offered them. I knew I couldn't pay, but I decided to bluff. So I offered them two options. Now, again, I couldn't do this without the dream team. The seller knew my chairman because he was such a famous guy in the industry. But you can do it without an anchor chairman like that, just to be clear. But he knew it, so he felt he felt comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So you
and
basically had a stamp of approval from your chairman.
exactly.
Yeah.
So then I said, hey, look, we have this great team together. We're doing acquisitions. I like you, so I'll give you two options. Either we'll buy the business cash, and I really lowball it. I mean, we'll take this off and that off, and for a general manager, we're a strategic buyer. We're not gonna run it. Da 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 da. The purchase price is X, which was much lower than what he expected. This was a $2 million business. Generating double-digit EBITDA, meaning free unencumbered cash flow, and he's been in business for 30 years, so an established business. And so I said, we'll give you this term, or if you take 90% note, I'll give you 10% of the deal. And then he called me back and he said, I would like to do the 90% and talk about that option. So then we went through and we started negotiating. And still, I needed, even if we do 90%, I still needed to come up with $100,000 or more. Not in, I didn't have it.
Which you didn't have, correct?
I didn't have. Right. So and this was brutal. I mean, what kept me going through the process, because we had negotiation, the deal fell apart. It came back, it fell apart, and then we came to a point that it's either I convinced them to do 100% note, or I can't come up with 100, 200, $300,000 in down payment. And I reached out to local investors. I reached out to friends and family. One investor told me, what am I investing in? Your dreams? That's what he told me. Now I didn't contact him, but now his investment would probably double itself. Um, but yeah, I had a lot of pushback from people. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm getting fired from my job because I'm concentrating on QLA. I'm not doing my job correctly. I'm trying to keep my board happy. I'm trying to make sure the accountants and lawyers. Now I did due diligence. Now I have this enormous bill to pay, and I still need to come up with $200,000 to finalize this transaction.
Yeah. So
So
how did you come up with that?
I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna. So I contact the seller. By the way, the seller had a broker, and the broker said, I'm not going to offer him 100% note because he won't take it.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, no problem. Schedule a call with him. We scheduled a call, and I said, hey, listen, the price is inflated. I came up with all of these reasons. Now,
So again, you practiced for that call.
oh, for that, I mean,
Yeah.
I practiced the hell out of that meeting.
Which is what they say in the military. The 6 P's: prior planning prevents piss poor performance, and that's absolutely true.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
I mean, I have pages that I wrote. I mean, it was. I practiced so much because this is life. If you don't think this is, financially speaking, life or death,
yeah,
you shouldn't be in this deal because you can't emotionally. Lying in bed at night with I have a by now my wife have given birth already, and I have a little baby, another 2-year-old daughter, a wife, an apartment. I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting my family in all of this debt. The deal's gonna fall through. Anyways,
and I'm gonna guess a lot of people said you're out of your mind. This isn't gonna work.
oh yeah,
Now they probably say, well, we knew you'd always get it done. But
I didn't. I got rid of all of those people,
good,
so they don't know.
good.
They just see that I got a new car and a new
Yeah,
house and this
yeah,
and that. But I just called them and I said, listen, I came up with all of these reasons why, from a financial and operational perspective. And if you're doing 100% no, and you're in the deal, you will know. You should know all of these little reasons
yeah.
why you can come up. But I have my own reason. And I said, listen, either you take 100% no, or we're gonna walk away from the deal. And my balls were shaking. I mean, I was sweat. Thank God it wasn't in person because he would see a corpse. I mean, I was white. I was sweating. I was praying to God, and but he said, "Let me think about it." And he hung up the phone, and then I wrote this whole email saying, my points.
Yeah.
Just to recap my points, and I sent it over. And I was waiting for a few days. I mean, those few days were brutal.
That's a long wait, isn't it?
That was brutal. And the funny thing is, the last day before I got the answer, I met with a bank because I continued going. I said, you know what? If I can't close this deal, fuck it. I will go and get another deal. I will close other deals. I don't care. I'm not stopping. I'm not quitting on this deal because I saw the potential that you can, with one signature, go from a negative net worth in my situation to being worth a few $1,000,000.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm not quitting. And when I got into that mindset, and when I stopped caring what the seller would say and being calculated about my speech and what I'm gonna say, and I just put in what I really think in a professional, respective way, but I really put in what I feel in a paper and in when I spoke with him in an email, and I sent it over. That's when stuff started clicking.
Yeah.
So I came back from a meeting from a bank. And I was sitting in my car and I'm like, well, I'm going to find another deal. I'm going to keep pushing. I don't care. QLA is the way to go. If you want to make money, that's the way to go. And then I get an email and I look at my phone and I see an email from the seller representative. Hey, Shawn, seller decided to move forward with the deal. And that was a happy day. That was a happy day.
I bet it was. So how did you? Because a lot of people say, well, maybe you were tougher, maybe you were this, maybe you were that. How did you stay motivated through that process?
So I feel like there's two ways of motivating yourself. There's the good motivation is, yeah, I want to be successful, and which gets you going at times. And there's the bad motivation is like, oh shit, I'm really gonna, if this doesn't work, I should, I'm gonna kill myself. If this doesn't work, I mean, my life is over. So I used a combination of both of these, and most importantly is what kept me going is my family, stuff that are important for me,
Mm-hmm.
and the desire to really be successful and really commit to QLA. And you motivated me listening to your stuff, listening to Dan's stuff, um, but it's the process is dead simple. I mean,
It is simple,
it's
but
so simple,
as I
but it's not
say,
easy.
yeah, as I say all the time, it is simple. Simple's not the same as easy.
Yeah,
The
I mean, it's not easy at
Yeah,
all. But the steps, everything, it's super simple. But you just gotta pull yourself by the
yeah,
straps,
and I
man.
mean, you're at a point now. What's important now is to run successfully the first business, because
Yeah,
if you don't do that, professionals lose interest, your board loses interest, et cetera, et cetera. But you're focused on that, obviously, and then you will find, and you probably have already, is that once you have one deal done, the other deals become easier in a lot of ways. And you've got what, three or four now that you're going after.
yeah, more than that.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, and also like I have an investment bank that has a specific lender. They
yeah,
do a lot of debt, and when I approached them first time, they wanted me to pay them to put together the OM,
yeah.
offering memorandum. I can't, some words I can't say. That's one of them. But we were, and now I reached out back to them and said, hey, listen, my board, a lot of this is, half lies, half truths. When I say, listen, my board is pushing me to contact you again just to make sure we maybe, you guys still fit our needs. Um, when I say the board, I mean the president, which is myself. So I say, that they put in pressure. So yeah, we have a revenue stream, we have a platform, we have a deal. Now they don't want any retainer for our
Right.
OM. Now it's
Right.
all contingency based. So really, once you do your deal, but I told my wife, listen, now the real work starts. I mean, the pressure I had in closing this fucking deal compared to now when I have my new life and I have this whole platform, this whole roll up I'm trying to put together, the pressure to make this deal work is
Mm-hmm.
much greater than the pressure of closing the deal. But this is where the magic of QLA comes to place. You have a fucking board.
Yeah.
You, I got my chairman to come down. We're gonna fly down there. Oh, by the way, when we closed this deal, before we closed the deal, the seller said, "Listen, before we close this deal, I want to see you." Now, this is far from me. This is
Mm-hmm.
like an hour flight from me. Um, and I said, "Okay, I'll be there tomorrow." This was Saturday night. There was no flights available. So what did I do? I waited a few days. No, I didn't wait a few days. I got in the car and I drove 10 hours to the guy. I drove actually 7 hours. I stopped in a hotel. I slept for 2 hours. I got in the car. I drove to him, met with him for 4 hours, and then drove all the way back because I needed to be at work by Monday. So you can't script this. Um, the level of commitment that I learned, this is really like for myself, I really learned the level of commitment you should have is absolute,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
to make
Yeah.
this work.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
we're flying down there, we're putting together an action plan. We got the owner to work full and part-time for about a year to find a new general manager. We have some local acquisitions that we're going to do. I'm meeting with the bank's president, interviewing them again to see if they're a good fit for a company like us that is accelerating in such a great rate. Now, when I approached the bank, I said, I take whatever I invested me personally, which was a little less than 10,000 throughout the year, and I compared it to the growth. It was like 37,000%.
Yeah.
But when I went to the bank, I said, this year we grew 37,000%, and I want to make sure that you guys can support that growth. Nobody asked me, oh, you mean from 10,000 to a few million? They just see a guy in a suit with a successful board that it has a company that has grown 37,000%.
Well, and the other thing that does is, which a lot of people miss, is that when you take a look at doing essentially this on a shoestring and doing it successfully, imagine if we had capital, what it would be like. Much, much easier. Well, one of the words you just used was, when you interviewed banks, and that mindset's important. Same with professionals. Is same with board members, actually, is that you're not begging them to do business with you. Just like a job interview, you're interviewing them, you're making a decision. You are, if you believe you're going to build something, offering them free equity, essentially, right?
And that was something that it took me time to learn, because at first I was so scared. I mean, I was scared out of my mind because I was feeling like they're doing me a favor. But now I realize is that in a way you are doing them a favor, because you just, given that you're closing your deal and you're committed and you're actually doing this full, like to the absolutely, you just gave them free money,
Free
millions
money.
and millions of dollars for free for 4 to 8 hours a month.
Right. If you believe that you're building something, and that's where the faith comes in, right? And then they're watching you to see, okay, is he committed? Is he serious about this? And then you'll find usually that even though the board's engaged in the beginning, they will become more and more excited, particularly once you have a deal. Deal.
And the first 6 months, because again, this took me a year. And I think that's where people have hard time, because this day and age, especially my generation, we're really looking for a quick fix. Watching all of these videos of e-commerce and and I mean the numbers that people are wanting to, they're selling you programs to make $100,000 a year. That's a joke. That's nothing. Dan Pena and Bruce Ripple teach you how to make basically infinite amount of money, because as long as you keep on doing deals, your net worth is growing, your salary is growing, and you can do it. If you're my age, I'm pretty young, I'm in my late 20s, you can really do it 5 or 6 times.
And and grow geometrically, not grow arithmetically.
I mean, once you learn that you're buying revenue streams, it's a piece of cake.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I'd go that far. It's simple, but it's not easy. It's not easy. But you, to your credit, you followed the steps, you worked it. Having your back up against the wall. A lot of people are concerned, well, what do I have to risk? And I don't want to take those risks. But having your back up against the wall helps motivate you. It really does.
And back to your question about not your question, but your comment about the board showing more interest. The first 6 months they were all in. Then the second 6 months they started answering my emails less and being less responsive. But I kept on pushing, and I am in a respectable, professional manner. I kept them accountable. What you will learn in the process is that even though these people on paper are worth a gazillion dollars, they're not Dan Pena. They're not Bruce Ripple. They do screw up. They do And that helped me when I was looking for board members, because I was like, wow, I thought these people are like, I put them on a pedestal, and now it's taking this guy a week to respond to my email. But after I closed my deal, now I'm the best thing since sliced bread. I mean, I'm Jesus Christ. I'm walking
Yeah,
on water. I'm turning
yeah,
water to wine. I mean,
yeah.
the, I'm the best thing they ever met.
And
So
now you just have to continue that. You've got to continue to show progress. You've got to keep them updated. The Well, it's great. So it is great. Okay. Well, I'm not going to keep you forever here. I appreciate the time. But what advice, maybe in closing, would you give to people starting their QLA journey?
um, the best advice is, first of all, this is something my wife told me.
Mm-hmm.
She said, it's so amazing that you have a step by step, on paper, clear path to get to where it is you're trying to go.
Mm-hmm.
Follow the steps. That's the most important thing. And don't think that you need to know everything from the get-go, because there's one of the things one of my board members said. He said, you probably have learned stuff that you would never learn in university, college,
Yeah. Yeah.
school.
That's
Some stuff,
absolutely true.
yeah, I mean, some stuff you just can't teach. You
Yeah.
just gotta go through it. I mean, I have a daughter now. I tell her, don't put your hand in fire, but she does it anyways until it hurts, and then she doesn't do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true for positive and negative stuff in life. I mean, just follow the steps. You will do mistakes. That's good, because you will learn, and
Yeah.
you will learn how to better yourself and what not to
Yeah.
do and what.
I mean, it absolutely is true that most people fail their way to success. All of us have had that experience. I think you have a written plan that's absolutely true. The only other word that I'd put in there, a written plan that's been proven to be successful. Because there are a lot of people that can sell you a plan, right? But can they have the track record that QLA has produced in the 26 years now? The answer is no. The answer is
Yeah.
no. Well, that's great. Okay. Well, to me, I'm really happy to see that you've succeeded and stuck with it. You were also aggressive with me and doing another call, doing another call, doing another call, to your credit. And I think that as you look to the future here, you're going to find that once you have this done, once you have the confidence, that the next steps, I think, will come more quickly. But as you said, it's harder now, but you also have the understanding that it's doable, which is
Yeah.
a big deal. So,
Yeah.
okay.
It's,
Any
it's
last thoughts
harder.
here, Shawn?
Yeah. I mean, don't go on Reddit.
Yeah.
Don't go online. Don't talk to people. Don't hang with your friends. I had people, when I told this to my friends when I just started, my ex friends, because I don't hang out with anybody anymore. Um, I mean, they laughed at me. I mean, you can read the letter on Bruce's website. They laughed at me. They told me, one guy told me, why the hell will somebody so successful do
Yeah.
business with a little shit like you?
Yeah.
Um, and now, now
Well,
it actually,
it's funny. Just a closing thought for me on this is that I said you will run into that guy. You will run into that guy when you're interviewing Dream Team members. That you're young. You probably don't have a lot of capital. You probably don't have a lot of business. Why would I ever want to do business? And I talked to a guy that said that he has been studying QLA for 3 months and he was an expert. I said, well, let's test that theory. So I said to him, why would I ever want to do business with you? And what would be your answer? And he says, well, he said, I would tell him that nobody's going to work as hard as me, that I'll never quit. That's a whole bunch of bullshit. But I said, a better answer to that is you are absolutely right. I don't have a lot of capital. I don't have a lot of experience, but I'm smart enough to realize that. And that's why I'm surrounding myself with people who have been there, done that. And that's why I'm talking to you, which also compliments a guy, right?
Yeah.
And
I
it's
have
funny,
an answer for that too.
most of the time the guy will say, "That's smart. I wish I was that smart at your age. It would have saved me a lot of time and money." But go
Yeah.
ahead.
My answer is just hang up the phone because I learned that you do want somebody that is always in a team. You want somebody
Yeah.
that is always like the doubter, which is good, but you want all your team to believe in you and to be on your
That's true.
side.
That's true.
So having people that don't believe in you, so you're absolutely right. This deal is maybe not for you. Maybe you're not the right person for this. And then he will say, "Oh no, I didn't mean it that way. I just wanted to get,
Well, that's
for
true.
you."
The takeaway is a tremendously powerful, but those tough questions are not bad
No.
because people that ask you tough questions are interested, or they would have hung up the phone, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Keep pushing there, Shawn. Keep pushing.
I will.
Okay. Good talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Take care. Bye bye. Okay. So if you have any questions or comments or ideas for future episodes, please email bruce@brucewhipple.com. And if you're not already on our mailing list, head over to brucewhipple.com and sign up and grab any of the free reports. That'll put you on the mailing list. There is a lot of free information you can use to acquire already profitable businesses. This is Bruce Whipple. Thanks for listening to the Business Acquisition Podcast. And remember, you miss 100% of the opportunities you failed to take. And procrastination truly is the thief of time. So do something today, please. Your future self will be proud of you.